God will bring his kingdom, to we will bring in his kingdom, to God, we will bring it in soon. So just a little leavened, added, and brought to what they say will happen.
Meant a continuation of the teachings on taking dominion politically and carrying out the sacred purge through the human agency of a corporate Christ, composed of elite, morally perfected Christians. What changed was the greater number of adherents and the increased disingenuousness of the prophets. It spreads through the teachings of Kelly Varner. Introduction. Kelly Varner pastored Praise Tabernacle in Richland, North Carolina. He was one of those who acted as a conduit to channel the deep things of God from the relatively isolated prophets of the 1948 Latter Rain movement to the somewhat whitewashed and more widely received kingdom message in the 1980s, which was taught by John and Ann Jimenez, Bob Weiner, and Earl Polk. Pause. Earl Polk is from Atlanta, and I'm pretty sure that Johnny Enlow was a deacon in his church. So there's that. As one influenced by the prophet Bill Britton, Varner taught typical manifest sons of God themes from the high ground of the elite chosen few. For example, he said, most leaders are afraid to preach the whole counsel of God. They draw back from the ascended life. But there is a high calling to which the elite must press on. Varner gives evidence that he, like his friend and associate Britton, was acquainted with the prophecies of Jane Lead. For example, sounding much like Lead, he says that Zion constitutes the highest place in the heavenlies and is to be manifested as a people in the earth, as his corporate overcomer. Speaking with the arrogance of the self-proclaimed prophet, Varner takes on a militaristic tone when he states, I boldly prophesy, arise, army of God, our time has come.
Okay, so you see what he says is not the full counsel of God. He says most leaders are afraid to preach the whole counsel of God. Well, that is true, but he says what they are. They draw back from the ascended life. They do not teach about the ascended life, how to ascend, which is not a doctrine in the scriptures. But he's implying that it is, and that is what pastors won't talk about. Not that they won't talk about eschatology, not that they won't talk about putting the flesh to death. Those are the two errors in the church which prevent people from growing in sanctification. Not the biggest errors are the path to salvation or the lack of one, that it's just a switch by verbally speaking that you believe and then you are saved. And pastors will not talk about putting the flesh to death and rejoicing in trials and tribulations, knowing that that is the way God brings us into his kingdom. That is what they truly do not speak of. But here, he changes it. He says, most leaders are afraid to preach the whole counsel of God, and that is they draw back from the ascended life, that there is a high calling which we all must press on to. So again, starting out with scriptural hobgob and ending up with scriptural waste. Okay.